Hey, call me Shape, and today we're reacting to a video titled I Was Laid Off at 56 and What I Did Next. Let's get right into the content.
On a beautiful day in June 2018, I went into work as usual. By 11 o'clock that day, I had no job. I was 56 years old. I realized I had two options. One was to panic and cry, and the other option was to take control. I decided to take option number two. I went into work and I thought it would be a day like any other day. And I had meetings with clients that morning. My job entailed a lot of client meetings that were out of the office. So I had a coffee set up with a client. And so that's what I was going to do that morning. And I went to my meeting and I heard my phone ding and I looked down and there was a message from my boss. Now, just to backtrack a little bit, my boss actually worked in a completely different city in a different province. And she came in to our office that day and she had the HR guy with her. I'm sitting there at this coffee meeting and I'm thinking, you know what? I have a feeling I'm getting laid off. And so when my phone dinged and I looked down and it was an email from my boss saying, hey, I know you're out of the office, but could you come back? I just want to have a quick meeting with you. I knew at that point that I was getting laid off. And there was a couple of things that kind of went through my mind. And I thought, okay, I have two options here. I can completely lose it, freak out, panic, cry, whatever. And then the other option was to actually take control of my life and take control of the situation and just go back to the office in a position of strength. And I decided to do that because I'm a bit of a stoic. I kind of feel that life hands you situations and there are things that you have no power to prevent from happening. Essentially, your company has decided to lay you off, and there's nothing that you can do about that. They have made that decision. So the better way to be is to accept it and to be in control how you deal with that outcome as opposed to letting them have the power of dealing with it. So I went back to the office to face the
I'm
music.
gonna stop it right there. She has a great point, and this happened to me recently. I was those who are been a fan of my channel. I was working three jobs, YouTube being one of them. I'm a personal trainer, and I was working at a restaurant, and the restaurant decided to get rid of me. And I don't want to get into why, but essentially, I took that as, you know what, this is an opportunity for me. This is not a disaster. So you could look at your situation from many different perspectives, and the best one to look at it from is a position of strength. I'm using this opportunity now, the free time that I have, and the load of stress off of my shoulders to work on YouTube. And I've been dropping a video every single day, and I've been seeing results. So if you're going through a layoff, something like that as well, and where you lose a job, this is an opportunity for you. So I'm glad she did that. Let's continue listening to what else she has to say.
I got to the office and I went into the meeting and there was our HR guy sitting there with my boss. And so I knew for sure what was happening. I very kindly, before anything started, said, hey, I know I'm getting laid off. I'm all good. And I looked at my boss and I asked her to leave. Because quite frankly, I did not feel like hearing why they were laying me off, that it wasn't my fault, and whatever kind of thing that they tell you in situations like this. And I just really didn't want to hear it. And so I said, I'm just, going to go through my package and we'll just leave it at that.
Wow, that is impressive. She said she's going to walk in there in a position of strength, and she absolutely did that. She absolutely turned the tables around and probably shocked her own employer. Her boss might have been like, damn, maybe should we really begin letting go of this lady? Wow, I'm very impressed.
At that point, I decided to go home and to process the news. And I think that's the important thing to do is when something like this happens to you, is give yourself time to actually process what's happened, grieve your job, because losing your job it's not a good thing. You need to grieve that job. You need to just settle in with yourself and kind of figure out how you're feeling in that moment. I basically sat there all afternoon just going over what had happened, and I decided that I just wanted to take a time out. It was June, summer was coming, and in Calgary, summers are really short, only like maybe 2 months, and the rest of the year it's pretty much winter practically. So I just decided to enjoy my summer, and that's something I've never done before. I've never just been laid off and taken the time to just enjoy myself and enjoy the summer. What you have to understand is Calgary is an oil and gas city. So a lot of companies here get bought and sold, and getting laid off is kind of a normal thing. And I had been laid off before, but it was different because I was a lot younger. And typically those kind of layoffs included huge packages. And it was kind of great to get laid off because you got this huge amount of money, and you were able to put it away and then find another job. And that's what happened to me. I, was laid off, and then I got this huge amount of money, put it away for retirement, and a week later I had a job. But this was different. I mean, 56, you guys, like, a lot of employers just don't want to hire you when you're that old because they honestly kind of believe that you're only going to be there a few years and then you're going to retire, and they just don't want to put that kind of an effort into training and steering a new employee to get basically 3 or 4 years out of someone. What concerned me is I had thought about retirement, planned for retirement, but I really wasn't kind of looking to retire for at least another 4 or 5 years. So I was thinking like maybe 60, 61, 62, but it was a very kind of in the distance thing. And I definitely wasn't looking to be not working at the age of 56.
And you can't expect these things. I think when we think about jobs and work and retirement, we got to understand that if you're working for somebody, you don't got the leverage to determine when you retire. You could be forced into retirement like she was. And this is why I think it's important for many people to start their own business young. That way they have leverage in their control of their finances. Don't start it to become a boss and to, make all the rules. You're doing it because you want absolute leverage, unlimited leverage, right? When you work for an employer, you have limited leverage, limited control. And like she said, she walked in one day, thought it was going to be a regular day, and found out, that was her last day. It makes you really think to yourself that, one, you could die at any moment, right? So you may never make it to retirement. Some people never do. But then two, we trade our lives, trade our time, right? Which is essentially your life, for money. And we do that year after year after year after year, and we don't look after our own financial ability to earn. Right? We're more concerned about being employed. That's why I feel like now it's like the riskiest thing you could do is to have a job. Right? To be employed is the riskiest thing. And so a lot of people didn't want to start businesses because they didn't want to take risk. But to me, like you said, jobs, companies are bought and sold and traded and go out of business. I mean, anything can happen. And in your 50s, do you really want the hassle of trying to start all over? Because she's lucky. She seems like she works for a good company. She's had an HR person to give her essentially a severance package. But not a lot of people are fortunate like that. A lot of people work in the services industry, so it's like they're waiters or they work at a nail salon or they're bartenders. These kind of jobs, there is no severance package. Once they fire you, you're gone. And the restaurant that I worked with a ton of people who were up in age, right? And the reason why I probably got fired or laid off, whatever you want to call it, is because I cared about the job less than those other people. I worked with a lot of older people, and they needed the job. That was their livelihood. For me, it was my third job, so it was just extra income to have more disposable income to spend money and do stuff like that and save. Fortunately, I saved like $5,000 while I was there. Thank the Lord. So when they laid me off or fired me, I'm just using the word lay off because she's saying it, I was prepared, right? Like I was just chilling. So if you have a job like that, I strongly think like messages like these are like, yo, you have to work for yourself. That is going forward, 2024 and beyond, you gotta work for yourself. If you don't, that is the risky thing for sure.
So I went through my summer, just really enjoyed my summer. And in September of that year, I decided that I was going to go to Melbourne for a month or so. My son lived in Melbourne, and I just thought, here's an opportunity to go over there and actually spend some meaningful time. So I booked a trip and I went to Melbourne for just over a month. So essentially that brought me back to Calgary at that point at some time in November. And in November of 2018, I decided to take stock of my finances, really look at where I was at, what would be the best course of action? Do I look for another job? Do I try to make things work the way they were? I really was not in a position to completely retire at that point. I needed at least another 3 years minimum of work. And the way my layoff package was structured, it really was in my best interest not to look for work immediately after I got laid off. But by November, I knew that I needed something. So I started looking for work, and it was not looking good. I had applied at quite a few places and wasn't really hearing back. I was reaching out to my network, and I don't know, all of a sudden I saw an ad come across my LinkedIn for a maternity leave position in my field with a company that was my client in my previous job. And I reached out, and it was a contract position for 1 year. And I thought, wow, this would be so great. It would give me an extra year of working. It would give me time to kind of decide where I wanted to go and just give me a little bit of breathing space to assess if I wanted to retire or if I wanted to go to work, or, what the situation was. So I applied for the job and I got it. Of course, when 2020 came around, February of 2020 to be exact, I finished my job in the middle of that month, and literally 2 weeks later, the world went into lockdown. And everything was different. The great thing, the absolute best thing that happened was because I was in that contract position for just over a year, I had gathered enough hours that I actually qualified for unemployment insurance. If you're American, Canada does have a little bit of a better social structure than you would find in America, but only because we pay a lot more in taxes to be able to have this. But this really worked out for me because essentially the world shut down. I couldn't look for anything else, even if I wanted to look for anything else, because no one was hiring, no one was doing anything. Companies were trying to figure out how to function without having employees to come into the office. So I was able to get unemployment insurance for almost a year. And so that essentially tied me over for another year. So out of the 4 years that I really needed, between my package and my contract position and my unemployment insurance, I covered off pretty much 3 years. So I knew that I would be okay. I knew that I could go into retirement and figure out what was next for my life. So here are some tips, just off the top of my head, that I can give you if you get laid off in late life. Number one, the most important thing, take control of the situation. Take control of your layoff story, because that will make it so much easier for you to deal with the aftermath and all of the thoughts that come to you after you've been laid off, because you go through, anger, denial, sorrow, all of these grieving processes, because jobs are a big thing for us. They're our livelihoods. They are what allows us to pay for things. Secondly, stay positive as much as you can, but don't be afraid to grieve. Don't be afraid to just sit there with a glass of wine or a cup of coffee or whatever your comfort drink is, and grieve your job and grieve the life that you've had.
I'm gonna stop it right there. I think this is a great video. I thought her last few tips were going into the more feminine realm of things, and I have both male and female, both female and male audience, and so yeah. For most people, I don't think they're going to be crying over their job. I understand that women do. I get it. But the best thing she said was take control. I think that's absolutely solid advice. And that's what I did. When I got, like I said, fired from my job, I said it to myself, you know what? This is the time where I can invest more into YouTube. I've been holding off. I built up the savings. It's all right that my income is going to go down a little bit. I'm going to definitely take a hit on the income. But then I was like, you know what? I still work at my personal training job. If I need to take on a few more clients, I could do that. I had options. And it's been great. I won't lie. It's been absolutely great. The amount of stress I used to have, and I didn't realize it until I stopped working there, because I was working there for almost a year. The amount of stress that I had going to that job every week was intense. And when I stopped working there, what I noticed, on Wednesday and Thursday, I don't feel that kind of stress of Fridays coming up. Friday, I worked there Friday, Saturday. Only 2 days a week, but I worked there for 8.5 hours each day, so about 16 hours for the 2 days. And it was just a stressful environment because it was low-level employment, right? You got a manager that, you go back and do this, and they yell and they scream, and they're smart, and they got attitude, and then you're servers, so you're waiting on the public. The public could be tough at times. You're dealing with people in the kitchen, you know, they got their own issue. A lot of emotional stuff. And if you're like an empath like me, you're just absorbing a lot of this shit, taking it with you, you know, and anticipating it before you go to work. And so now I don't have to deal with none of that stuff. So I think I'm going to be a lot healthier of not having that job, but I also have a lot more time now. I could take that time back and invest in myself. And that's how I'm taking control. So excellent video. I appreciate her. Give her a support. Subscribe to her channel. The link to the video is below. And check out some other videos, and I'll talk to you guys soon.